all the underpinnings and beginnings of confidence are physical. If you're walking down the street and suddenly you hear a commotion and two people are fighting, you will see literally everyone on that street stop whatever they're doing and watch the fight. Humans are fascinated by violence, and you've got to ask yourself why. And of course, it's a recognition that for a significant part of our evolutionary history, violence was one of the most important elements in human existence. As much as we curse it, as much as we talk badly of it, the juxtaposition between humans' social nature and their need for each other to get along and to express love amongst the various members of a given community. There are disputes between humans that can't be resolved, and ultimately, throughout history, violence has been the number one method of conflict resolution, for better or for worse. And there's a recognition in all of us that this is where we come from. And there's a reason why combat sports have this thing where people will watch them and they might even be repulsed by them, but they find it difficult to take their eyes from it. And I do believe that most combat athletes carry that sense of their, even if it's on a subconscious level, this kind of belief that this is who we are. Humanity and nature, really the two things that seem to, more than anything else, determine whether or not a given human community will be successful in a predatory world are numbers and technology. Okay, the more your numbers increase and the higher the technology of the weapons and support systems you have around you, the more successful you'll be in a predatory world. An interesting point, if you look at humans, just the raw material of humans, we're fucking pathetic. In a predatory animal kingdom, we're just the absolute bottom of the food chain. We don't have a single effective weapon other than better than average endurance. That's about it. The rise of technology and the growth of community after the imposition of language, these are other things that would have been very, very important factors in humanity's rise. But you put us in a community who can talk to each other with language, give us the time to come up with technological advances such as metals, and suddenly a human will go from no combat effectiveness in the animal kingdom to a human armed with a simple metal-tipped spear can kill damn near any animal in the animal kingdom and working as a group. Most humans have this sense of self-worth and pride which they're willing to fight for, and if it gets crossed by someone else, they're willing to stand. Some people will stand more early and some people will be pushed further back, but everyone's got that line beyond which they won't be pushed. And there's some kind of deep recognition in all of us that we have that somewhere within us, no matter how hard we try to bury it or what have you. And that's why I believe there will always be this eternal interest in combat sports. Now, I don't believe that most people today have any kind of respect for unrestricted violence or non-consensual violence. I think most good people are repulsed by that, and I'm sure that as humanity improves out into the future, that will become more and more widespread. But that's not to say we can't exercise these old evolutionary demons inside of us, and sometimes there are just disputes between different people, different cultures, different nations, where ultimately it's going to come into a shoving match, and that will degenerate further into violence. There's always going to be a need for humans to be able to express themselves through violent methods and to use physical force to get to their goals and objectives. But my whole thing is focus. We only live one lifetime, and your training lifetime is even shorter than your actual lifetime. people say, oh, there's physicality on the one hand, there's mentality on the other, and confidence is squarely in the mental aspect of the game. But all the underpinnings and beginnings of confidence are physical. Okay, a rational human being will see where they're having success and where they're having failure. And confidence will surround those areas where they're having success and will degenerate in cases where they're having failure. So my job as a coach is to set them up for success in the gym with a given set of skills. And I don't have to do anything psychologically after that. If I can set you up to be highly successful with a given move or a set of tactics 10 times in a row against quality opposition in the gym, I don't have to do a damn thing when it comes to instilling confidence. I will tell people, hey, you're doing a really good job with that move, it's working well for you. But when they nod in agreement, I'm not trying to force anything on them. They already recognize that long before the words came out of my mouth. But on the other hand, intelligent, rational people will recognize when they're failing with given moves, and no amount of talk on my part can ever change that. Most people, I hate to say this, but it's true, most people are more concerned with image than function. And it's hard to sell a fighter or a jiu-jitsu athlete who doesn't look like one. You can do it in fighting and jiu-jitsu because ultimately it's about whose hand is raised at the end of the match. And you could even use it as a selling point. You can be a guy that doesn't look like he should be winning, but he is winning. That is a selling point. But if you give most people a choice between looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger and winning matches versus looking like Fedor and winning matches, most people will select, I wish I'd rather look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so most athletes feel almost like an economic compulsion to be in good shape and in order to advance their marketability. Our need as humans is always to find a balance between the two forces of conflict and cooperation. We need cooperation because humans isolated from each other are more or less helpless and useless. In order to advance, human communities need to build and grow. And so that sense of cooperation occurs in most of our daily lives. But there will also be irresolvable conflicts where physical force has to be used to form a resolution. And so most human beings find themselves swinging like a pendulum between conflict and cooperation. And that is something which really gives birth, I think, to combat sports.